I always like to start with stories because I think that's a great way to for people to listening to know who the guest is. And yeah, like I was like scrolling through your Twitter or your X account. I just like to call it Twitter, but yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have like this introduction tweet where you were like describing your story, like who and how you were at 15, then
Hmm.
how you went through this self improvement process until you were 18, then like
Yeah.
going through like different like not necessarily jobs but like businesses like
Hmm.
marketing agency sales forex trading and these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just like you to like start sharing your story from that specific point in your life, so like how that self-improvement path came for you.
Sure. Yep. It's quite a long story. I'll try to keep it, to keep it clear and precise. And yeah, let's go, man. Definitely.
Sure, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can definitely start with that. It's a great way to introduce myself and to share a very interesting story. You want to start now or
No, yeah, go ahead. Like just start sharing that.
all right. My dad gave me a book when I was 15. The book was called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was I was just a kid. I didn't like reading at all. In fact, I didn't read at all in school. And when he gave me the book, he was like, "If you want to be rich and successful one day, start by reading this now." And I was like, "Okay, let's see." So I read the book, and it was quite interesting. It got me into the whole, into this self-development business entrepreneurial world, which was totally new to me. My dad is a surgeon, my mom is an engineer, so there's nothing, even related to business or psychology or self growth. So yeah, the book was interesting, and then I figured out, let's give this world a try. Let's dive deeper into this world. So my next book was. I think it was The Richest Man of Babylon or something like that. I think that was the name. And it was talking about how by approaching the money that you're making in a smart way and learning how to multiply it, you can make a lot of money fast. Which was a brand new concept to me. I thought about money up until that point in terms of working a job, getting a salary, and that's it. I didn't have any long term investment plans into my philosophy, my approach. So I read those two books. I turned 16, and I was like, all right, I want to keep reading and expanding my knowledge and my consciousness in this world. So I kept reading and listening to podcasts, listening to going to seminars, to self help seminars, until I turned 17 and a half. And at 17 and a half, there was the biggest aha moment for me up until that point. I was laying in bed after a party. I went to a party. It was a high school party. I was laying in bed at 6 a.m. and I was just scrolling my Facebook, and one guy said there was a post one guy shared saying, "If you want to start your business, DM me now, and let's see what we can work out." I was like, like, who is this dude? And then I entered his profile, and I see a guy in a Bentley. His profile picture is in a Bentley. He's in a suit, looking good, looking sharp, confident. I was like, this is nice. I want to be this guy. So let's just DM him and see what's up. So I DM'd him. I was like, all right, like, what's this opportunity all about? And we went for a coffee, and he told me everything about this high-ticket sales network marketing company in which you basically sell products and build a team. It's like a pyramid structure in which you build a team by selling, companies' products, and you make money through referrals, right? Like I refer you, and you buy the product or the service, and I get like 10% from you. And then if you sell somebody to somebody else, I get 2% from what you sold to somebody else, and so on and so forth. It was a typical MLM. It's called multi-level marketing company. And I was like, this is great. Let's see what this is all about. I joined the company, and they didn't know anything about sales, marketing, psychology, communication, like anything at all. I just knew that if I go into that experience with curiosity and confidence and belief in myself that I can make it, something good will happen for me. So I just joined the team and started selling based on the script that they gave me. And 3 months down the road, I had like $40,000 in revenue. I sold $40,000 in revenue in those products. I was 18 at the time, and it was interesting because I was the youngest in the company. They never seen that happen before. And everybody asked me like, what was the secret to selling that much at that age? And I was like, I'm just having fun, man. I'm just here to play and have fun and learn and grow. Like I didn't know what failure was. I didn't know what overthinking, bad focus, discipline, or like those things were not a thing at all. I was just having fun playing and selling it. That's it, and learning obviously, and that's how I started. This enter this whole world, and that's when I figured out that I want to do something that's communication slash psychology slash people oriented, right? And it wasn't that long. I was in that company for like 6 months in total. Then I switched to another company of a similar structure. I was there for 6 months as well. I made a similar result there, and I was like, then, all right, this is all cool, but it's too shallow. It's too salesy. Like I'm just I'm just trying to sell things to people. It doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? And I asked myself, all right, if this doesn't feel right, what do you want? Like, what is it that you actually want? And the answer, came up easily, but I was afraid to admit it. And the answer was, I want to coach and speak. I want to be like the guys like Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, like those guys. But obviously, in this modern era, in a slightly different tone. And it was scary at first. I was a little guy from a small town from a small town in Serbia, and I was like, who would listen to me, man? I just have this sales experience. If I start speaking now, like who and why would listen to me? Whom can I coach? And so I just put it on the side and avoided that for the next 2 years. So I experimented with a marketing agency, with forex trading. And every time I tried something new, it went okay because, I like to go all in and learn fast, absorb fast, and apply fast. I'm a fast learner, I move fast, that was always my secret when it comes to growth. But it never felt right, and it wasn't until 2019 when I, lost all my money on Forex. It was a terrible, terrible situation. I was every money I've made so far up until that point, I'd invest in Forex, and I was just losing it. I was literally gambling. It was such a bad mental spot to be in, because I was training from this idea. I want to get rich fast. I want to make money fast without any effort, without any long-term plan, and that's obviously not how things work ever. So after losing a bunch of money and hitting a bad spot, I was like, all right, what now, man? Like, there isn't anything left. Like you've tried sales, you did good, but it's not for you. You've tried marketing, it went well, but it's not for, like, you don't feel right, when it comes to that. And you tried Forex now, it didn't went well, but what now? And that's when I had to face the truth, when I had to face the deeply hidden, idea of coaching and speaking. And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. Let's give this thing a shot. It was 2019. So I started this account on IG called You Mastery. And, it was a faceless account. And I just started sharing ideas about psychology, about self-help, about communication, sales, like those things. And I was studying psychology at the time, and I was like, all right, this is looking good. What if I turn this into a personal brand and start speaking in front of people and giving value, with my face on camera, and not just with with quotes and like written content. So I started my brand in 2020 on IG, and I grew to like 5K followers in 3 or 4 months, which was good. And I definitely credit that growth to authenticity. I was just sharing raw value from my own lens, which is probably the single most important thing when it comes to content creation. Just, being there as you are, whoever you are, and giving to your audience whatever you have at that moment from the most authentic point of view. And although I didn't know, I wasn't a psychologist back then, I wasn't a coach back then, I didn't know much about the. I didn't have the depth and width when it comes to knowledge in psychology, but I was just confident and sharp and focused, and I found people whom I could help. So back in 2020, when I started that brand, I was getting a lot of clients because people recognize that authenticity, and I wanted to hear more about that. And when you speak authentically from the place of experience, from the place of I know this because I've been there, I've done that, I've seen that, I can help you with that. Like then, it attracts people, right? Like people feel like they want to hear more about that. So I was getting clients back in 2020 before I became a psychologist and coach, literally because I was authentic and raw. And then I decided to become a coach. And I was also finishing my university when it comes to psychology. And the point behind that was literally just to, give myself a more legit, a more like to make myself more legit when it comes to speaking, coaching, like that whole world. Because you have a lot of life coaches who just like went to a 14-day course. They call themselves like life coach now. So I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to see, what psychology is all about, both classical and modern positive psychology. So yeah, I went through that process. Decided to go all in coaching and speaking and content, and here I am now, man. Like it's been 5 years, 5 good years, and we're still killing it.
I like a lot this part of authenticity and how you like give that a lot of like awareness and importance, especially in this space that you are in currently, like the coaching space, just
Yeah.
as you mentioned, because like I think there are two parts to that which like differentiate like good coaches and like shitty coaches, and it's like probably two things, like being congruent so that you can actually speak from experience and things that you have lived, and obviously like to be able to share those in an authentic way. Like you cannot be authentic about things that didn't happen, so like
Sure.
you need to have that congruence. And then the second part, which is like it's easy for people to just like go online and like consume a lot of Tony Robbins stuff and content and like
Yeah.
say like, oh, okay, I can also like do this. But like the fact that you actually have that extra even more traditional education and like path gives you like this two components of like the value that you can give to people, because you're not only talking from like this more modern and like self-improvement focused type of coaching, but you can also like speak even as a, yeah, well, you're a psychologist, so like as a psychologist. So I think that's a good thing. And I was thinking as you were starting like to share your story that our stories kind of are kind of similar in some ways, because like I also started like my entrepreneurship journey, if you want to call it that way, like in when I was 13, 14, probably 14, because I started like reading. So my like this path for me came through books as well. The first book that I read was like in this way, like with this focus, was Elon Musk's biography. And then after that, I started like reading more nonfiction books, because what had happened to me in the past was that I was like only reading stuff that I was told to read at school. Yeah, books that I was told I should read. I wasn't really ever fully invested in them. I read them, and like I was interested I was interested to some extent,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
it was not the same as when I like chose to actually read a book. And like after that was like a bunch of like self-improvement books, also like investment books, like finance books. And I think that's something interesting, because like for you it was through books learning about like personal finance, like and like this financial literacy like ideas. And for like two of my best friends, for them it was similar as well. Like for them it was not through books necessarily. It was like things they saw online and like learning about investments and like also like Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad and those books. But like I think that's something interesting. I hadn't really thought about this maybe pattern, if you want to call it that way, like that a lot of people start doing these things that end up in like self improvement or like entrepreneurship or coaching or these different things that start through like something that is very necessary for anyone, which is like money literacy, which is I don't know, that's something that I just noticed, which is very interesting. How was your experience as you were like in your teenage and high school years, having this, I don't know, like because for me it was some sort of duality, like having this like personal project. So I used to run a book blog, which I turned into like a marketing agency, and at the same time I was just like living my normal teenage high school life, which I enjoyed. But then I was like, it was a very contrasting experience for me, which I ended up like just deciding to try to combine. And then like I was okay, I gotta choose one, and I chose like to just enjoy the last year of high school, like to just start focusing more on that. How was that for you? Like, did you experience
It was
that
wild.
contrast?
Yeah, high school was wild for me because I was, I had a massive contrast when it comes to, things. I was a professional, I mean, semi-professional gamer. I played League of Legends for, for a long time, since 2009. Literally when the game was created back in 2008 or 9, I'm not sure exactly when, I started playing it, and, I became, we were competing, in the Balkans, Serbia, Croatia, and countries around Serbia. And so I was a professional gamer, semi-professional gamer. Then I was a bodybuilder. I was lifting weights and having a perfect diet and going to competitions. I was bodybuilding and competing in men's physique. Not sure if you heard about men's physique. It's like it's similar to the classical bodybuilding, but the only difference is that you're in shorts, not in the not in the underwear, and you are aiming more for like synchronicity in your looks and not just big massive muscles, right? So I was
Okay.
competing in men's physique, which is like modeling bodybuilding, so to say. I was a gamer. I was kickboxing at the same time, and then I joined, this sales company where I was building my team and selling to other people. So it was, a pretty unique combination. Like you don't see a gamer who is a bodybuilder who is a sales guy, often. Gamers are usually, behind their screens and with their, like laptops or computers and just playing games. Whereas salespeople are often more extroverted and more out there. So yeah, it was it was a wild combination, man.
Did you have any like I'm not sure if I would call them issues, but like yeah, like inner conflict of like I gotta choose one, or like which should I start like to focus on more, because maybe I have like the people from the company telling me like just to spend a lot of time with them and to just like fully invest myself in this, but I've also got like my gamer friends telling me like why am I doing that and not like being more with them, and like maybe
Pure
people
chaos.
from like
In my
bodybuilding.
case, it was pure chaos. I was just doing things. I didn't care much. Like I didn't have. My first mentor was that guy who sold me into that company, which I entered at 17 and a half. And up until him, I was just experimenting. And I'd say that's the best thing for everybody who is like, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Just go out there and experience as much as you can. Explore your interests. Like, whatever is pulling you, go in that direction. Go all in. Get obsessed. Feel free to get obsessed. Explore whatever is out there, and just make sure to keep asking yourself one question, and that one question is, all right, what do I want now? And obviously, second question, what can I learn from this? Like those two questions kept my drive alive. They kept me going when things were not so good. What do I want now, and what can I learn from this? Because there's always something to learn. There's always something hidden. That you can see and integrate that I didn't have before. So I wasn't very strategic when it comes to my high school and all those projects and identities, so to say. I was just experimenting, having fun. And then when it comes to sales and marketing and forex later, that's when I went all in on each of those things at a time. I wasn't my focus wasn't scattered. It was singular. I dropped bodybuilding, I dropped gaming, I dropped kickboxing, and I was just focused on one thing at a time, which helped me grow fast. I scaled my marketing agency and the sales company. I like to call it company because I didn't start the company on my own. I joined a team, but all you're given is a branding material, and you have to sell that product and build your team, and then train that team to sell more. So it was pretty much all on me. I grew fast in those areas because I was singularly focused on one thing at a time, and I didn't care. I was just there to have fun and learn and grow, which is probably the most important thing people are forgetting at all levels. At different levels, you get too strategic, you get too things get too complex, you get into systems, and you start thinking about everything and anything, and you forget to have fun. Have fun and learn and just let go of all the fears and heavy emotions. So that's what I teach my clients nowadays. When it comes to focus and confidence, you can't have confidence if you're not having fun. You gotta let go of that burdening feeling of things have to be this or that way. No. Nothing has to be a certain way. You just go and explore and adapt as you go, and having that perspective, which you just adapt as you go, is much more relieving than dictating and being strict about how things must be, because that's putting you in a box. And if things go outside the box, which they obviously do a lot of times, then you get stressed out, and that's not good for you. So being adaptive and open-minded is crucial.
About this last point specifically, something that I have been reflecting on through the last months has been this idea of the two different extreme points of this, which would be one being very analytical and also rigid, where you, as you were saying, putting everything into a box, and if it's not this way, then it's wrong, and it should not be that way. Yep. Or the other extreme where you're just maybe not necessarily caring, not because I think there are many other perspectives to that. You can also see that from a maybe Taoistic point of view, which would be okay, letting go, but then just engaging while letting things flow. But then this extreme point that I'm talking about is the other side of the spectrum, which would be just not caring about things. And I think that there are a lot of people who tend to go more to one side or to the other, but specifically for people who tend to go to okay, no, I gotta be very analytical and take care of things, because if I don't, then things might start to happen that down the road end up leading me to places that I do not want to go. Does that idea make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what do you think about how can people balance that approach they have to things? So because I mean it's a very valid and logical reason for being analytical. It's I want to be analytical and take care of things because I don't want them to go in a way I don't want down the road. But it's that also leads you to a point where if you are doing that in every single thing, in every project, in every relationship, in every activity, you're just stressing over everything and not being flexible enough to have fun, as you were saying. So what would you say are if you were coaching someone who came to you and said I think this is a reason why I am being so analytical, but I want to make a change because it's not letting me have fun, but still I want to be somewhat analytical. What would you say to them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we got to understand, first of all, that human beings are emotional beings first, rational beings second. And that's extremely important because a lot of us end up in the rational mind more than in the emotional part of ourselves, which is driving all your decisions. Like every decision you make on a daily basis is an emotional decision. It stems from a certain emotion. Like you can't act without an emotion. So trying to be too analytical ends up in denying a big part of your emotional side, which makes you act in alignment with your values. Like things aren't always logical, and it's a fact. Things are, especially when it comes to human beings and your needs and fears and desires, goals. Like your vision and your goals aren't a logical thing. They can be explained logically, but they in its nature they aren't a logical thing. They are your desire for something, which is emotion. Your fears and obstacles stopping you as well. They're also irrational most of the time. Like you know what you're supposed to do, but you're not doing that thing because there's something within you stopping you, a certain feeling. So first of all, the most important thing is understanding that human beings are emotional beings first, and then rational second. We use our mind to describe and explain what's happening within us and beyond us. And when it comes to somebody who is too rigid, too strategic, and wants to have more fun, I'd say that they have to lower their values and boundaries when it comes to themselves and their expectations. They have rigid expectations from themselves that are stopping them from experiencing fun and acting with confidence and with playfulness. It's the story that's unfolding in their mind all the time that's putting them in a box, in a boundary, right? Like, I have to, let's go back to X, since X is both, familiar to you and I, now. If somebody who wants to grow on X goes and says, I have to engage, I have to comment on 20 profiles per day, I have to reach out, to 10 people per day, I have to do this, and that, and then always sticks to that, rigidly, even when they feel like they could do more or less, they are robotizing, they're limiting their growth and their experience. They're taking away the fun part, the authentic part. They'll just be acting based on that schema, that program that they set, which could work for some, but like it's very stressful and draining, and it's taking away your drive for most people, right? So it's about examining your beliefs about why are you so rigid? Like, what is it that you believe about the system that you're imposing on yourself that's making you feel stressed out, and it's making you want to have more fun and freedom, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people are run. I mean, everybody's run on unconscious beliefs, and becoming conscious of what's happening in your mind, and then being able to change that is something that very few people do. They just run on the autopilot, from the past that they've built in the past, and never ask questions. Asking questions is very important, and especially when it comes to that. So everybody who is too rigid should ask themselves, all right, what am I afraid of? Because they're usually afraid of something that's making me act in such a rigid way, because let's try to come up with an example. Nothing is crossing my mind now, but like, can you give me an idea of what exactly?
I would just say, like, with friends and like any type of relationship, for example, when you're like maybe stressing over, like, let's say that you have a gym partner, and so like he's always like late, or he's like more disorganized than you are, because you're like very you plan a lot your like gym routine and everything, and like you start stressing over like that difference or that way of being, or that way that he has to approach his gym sessions. So like I guess that there, like in that case, your beliefs of like, oh, I should be more rigid with him because he is like stopping me from like making progress, like that is a valid idea that makes sense. But it's like, okay, I think that here comes the part of like examining your beliefs in some way, which would be like, okay, do I want to have fun with my friend while going to the gym? And like that doesn't mean that I will not be improving. I will be improving in a different way while having fun with him. Or do I want to just like be very extreme and be like, okay, you either become more organized and like become more my way, or like you just stop coming to the gym with me.
Yeah, that's a great example. In that situation, boundaries are most important. Boundaries and communication, right? If your approach is more spontaneous, and if you are okay with being late 5 or 10 minutes, and he's too rigid, he likes to be on time, and he likes to, be focused and organized. In that case, you guys got to come to the common ground and communicate about that, and share. I would be like, all right, listen, man. I'm chill when it comes to going to the gym. I don't care so much about being on time. I see that you do. How do you suggest we figure this out? Because like obviously, if you're coming on time every time, and I'm late every time, you're getting pissed off because I'm late, and then I'm not feeling good because I'm late either. So how do you suggest we figure this out? And then he goes like, all right, I can. Just the fact that you communicate that with him reconciles you in a way. It makes you understand and accept each other's differences, and then you can come up to the common ground, to the terms that work for both of you. So yeah, in that situation, it's all about communication. All about being all right. This is me. That's you. How can we make this work? And a lot of people avoid that communication. Never like talk about it. They just suppose or like expect other person to understand them without expressing their who they are, what they want, and yeah, man.
No, like yeah, that makes perfect sense, because like for this type of situations where it comes down like to a relationship problems, so like that's with a friend, family, partner, whatever, is like most of that is solved through communication and through like finding ways and like examining each person's beliefs, because like the belief that might be like making the one guy angry, like the guy who is not late and who is like very organized, is that okay, I want to make a lot of progress, and like he might be like driven by that, and the other guy might be just like, oh, I enjoy going to the gym and having fun with my friend. And like I think like in such scenarios, like the complicated part beyond just like coming to an agreement is like coming to an understanding of like, okay, are we on the same page or not? Because maybe none of them is like on the same page of like, I want to make a lot of progress and I just want to have fun with you. It's like, and I guess that has to do again with the beliefs that each person has about like what going to the gym means for them.
Sure.
And like how that represents their identity to some extent. Because for one, it's like, this is very important, and like part of my value comes through this. Part of my value comes through like being consistent in the gym, and for the other person it's like, oh, part of my value comes from like taking care of my relationships. But yeah, like what do you think about those scenarios where you have like this different ground beliefs and ground identities?
I'd say it still boils down to communication, acceptance. Like acceptance is a major issue for any relationship, whether it's your partner, friend, mother, brother, like anybody. Acceptance is crucial because people are different, and it's a fact, and you can't change that, and you can't make somebody else like you, nor you should. So you have to accept who they are, and that space in which you have to say, all right, I'm fine with them being different, is what's starting wars, literally. Between you and your partner, friends, with a family, or like between countries. It's the inability to accept the difference that's that's starting all the problems. So I'd say let go of your need to make them a certain way, and see them for who they are and accept them for who they are. Because until you do so, you'll have problems, in that relationship forever, literally. Or you'll have one side, so to say, obey to the other side, and say, all right, I'll lose myself in a way, I'll give up on who I am, so that you like me, and that's when you create an unhealthy relationship in which a boyfriend or husband or somebody is too dominant, and the other side is too submissive and passive, and there isn't balance. So conscious acceptance of who your partner, friend, mother, brother is, without judgment, is the single greatest, like it's the pinnacle of a healthy relationship, I would say.
And like that part of having a healthy relationship like with any person is what also makes it fun, because like in the beginning of any relationship, like when you first meet a person who ends up becoming like a really close friend, like you don't have like many expectations for that person, you know, you don't have like any, you're not waiting anything from that person. It's like that.
True.
Lack of rigidity allows there to be like some initial fun added to, of course, like some parts of like wanting to interact with the person and like those things of like wanting to like just become friends with them. But like that adaptability and like flexibility, no, yeah, that flexibility that you have is what like helps you with that. So like with these things that we have been saying, like that also applies to some like more personal things, which again, like if we were talking about the example of the gym, but not with a gym partner, rather like just like me with myself, like this examination of like beliefs and identity, I think still applies to some extent, because like if you want to be very disciplined in the gym and you are not an organized person, you have to come down to like examine your beliefs about like why, well, yeah, your beliefs, your identity, and your way of being, to know like why am I not being so consistent, and what can I change so that I can be. So like with these things, what would you say are like the maybe ground beliefs about things and about life that limit people to have fun in different things?
Fears. You know, it's always a fear. Fear is the biggest enemy, always. You know, and there is no doubt about it. You know, it's. I boil down things to three fears: fear of rejection, fear of failure, and fear of judgment. Right, and those three literally control your life. And if you're unconscious of them, and if they're making you feel, think, and act in a certain way, you will end up where they want and not where you want. And that's usually a bad spot. So it's crucial to accept the idea that you are, like, no matter how masculine, strong, and tough you are, you're afraid of a lot of things all the time. And that's what the typical toxic masculinity, rejects that idea. They're just saying, push, push, push. Don't even care or think about your emotions. While your emotions are your fuel, you can't live without them. So yeah, fear is the biggest issue when it comes to doing anything in life, and becoming conscious of that fear, learning how to embrace it and let it go, and then choose to act as you want it's one of the most important things in life, I would say, because fears are ruining relationships. Fears are stopping you from starting and scaling your business. Fears are stopping you from, landing a better job, from talking to a partner, like, to a boyfriend, to a boy or a girl on a street. Like, it's literally the root cause of all, I wouldn't say suffering, although it leads to suffering, but like the root cause of all stagnation. And the more aware you are of your fears and how they're affecting your life, the more you can be in control and change them. So, it takes a lot of vulnerability and conscience to say, all right, I am afraid of that I will fail. I am afraid that that they'll judge me. I might be, I might end up looking stupid or bad. And I'm afraid of that, and that's fucking fine. I'm a human being. There isn't anything wrong with that. Now let's feel that fear. That you can close your eyes and feel the fear. And once you feel the fear dissolves. It's called the paradoxical theory of change. When you lean into something that's affecting you, negatively, such as fear dissolves. It's not that you should fight fear. It's not that you should logically disarm fear. It's that you should lean into fear and let fear in, right? Once you let it in, it stops being a thing. It stops bothering you. And I've had a lot of experience with my clients in which they were stopped by fear in different areas. and they were fighting with fear all the time, right? The fear was the enemy. It was like the big thing they were afraid of, and they were running away from, and they didn't want to acknowledge it, accept it, and until they did, they were always in that friction, friction. They were always having friction and trouble with it, and once they let it in, it dissolved. It literally became their power to act. I had a friend who wanted to speak in front of people, but he was afraid of public speaking, and of being in front of thousands of people. And I was like, all right, let's examine that. Let's see what's so bad about being in front of all those people. He was like, all right, let's go. And he closed his eyes and tried to feel what's wrong within. And he was like, I see this guy at the end of the crowd. He's staring at me and he wants to kill me. And I was like, all right, how do you feel about that? About the fact that he wants to kill you? He was like, I don't know, I'm afraid. I want to run from here. I want to get out from this stage. I was like, not sure exactly what I told him, but I was like, all right, let's try to imagine the worst possible scenario. That guy from the back kills you, and it's all happening in his head. He's talking to me from his mind, and I was like, let's imagine that he kills you. What would happen then? And he was like, I don't know. Like, if he killed me, I'd die, and it wouldn't be like it'd be game over. And I'm like, all right, and then what? And he's like, well, then nothing. Then everything's fine. I'm like, all right, now let's try to walk toward that guy. Just by the way, his eyes are closed throughout this process, and he's imagining those things, and he's going down from the stage and walking toward that guy at the end of the crowd. And as he's walking toward the guy and feeling the fear that he mentioned, he sees in his mind that the guy starts backing and going backward and running away from him. And as they were, getting closer to each other, the guy who was represented as fear, started shrinking, becoming smaller. And as my friend approached him, he literally became so small that he, dissolved into thin air, like literally. And my friend was like, wow, like this feeling is so powerful when that idea in your mind of the fear that was stopping you, literally dissolves in front of you. I don't feel it anymore. He opened his eyes and he was like, I don't feel this feeling, this idea of something threatening me anymore. I feel perfectly fine with going and speaking in front of crowds. And that's what he did, because there was this idea, this image in his mind of the fear that was blocking him, and until he faced it, stopped running away from him and faced it, nothing changed. But once he did, it dissolved.
I think that from that exercise that you did with him, that you just shared, one interesting thing that I have seen many kinds of like therapists suggest people do is like, this idea I have more from like, I don't know, people like Eckhart Tolle from like A New Earth and The Power of Now, like more people who are more like spirituality focused, but like these practices that they suggest of like not identifying with your feelings. Sure. So like not making them your identity, like literally saying like I am afraid. So like if that was who you are and part of who you are, but like just like, oh, I feel fear, and like even just two things, like either describing the physical sensation or like describing it as an external object. As a psychologist, what do you think about like that way of doing things? Which I mean, I think is kind of what you did with your client in some way.
There's different approaches to handling fear. Like every school of psychology has a different approach. And what you just mentioned is emotional distancing. It's when you distance yourself from your emotion. It's when you say that you are not that emotion, you're just experiencing the emotion, and that's when you can you detach yourself from that emotion. That's very powerful, and it's often used, and it's definitely helpful. But I would say when it comes to that when it comes to some deeply ingrained fears, the most effective technique is leaning toward them, or so to say accepting them and letting them in, feeling them, and then letting them go as you spend time with them. Because like it's literally like it's part of you. That fear isn't bad. It's objectively just an emotion that you're experiencing. It's not bad. Fear. Let's just have this clear. Fear isn't bad. Fear got us as human species to where we are. It's the reason we survived. It's the reason we were able to figure out the situation with saber-toothed tigers and all those predators back in the day, and it's a protective mechanism of your mind and your body to keep you alive. Now, fear becomes an issue, especially in the modern world, when it stops you from doing the things that you want to do, right? It's oh, that guy will judge me. What will those people think about me? What if I fail? I'll be a failure. Like those type of fears are the negative fears nowadays that need to be handled, and learning how to recognize them, how to see them, how to accept them and not run away from them, and then choosing agency, choosing to act from the place of power once you accepted it, is like the 3-step formula I like to call it. Like that usually helps. So step number 1 would be noticing it. If a fear pops up, it ain't bad. Nothing is on fire. Just close your eyes, calm down, sit down, and just stop for a moment. Notice the fear. Where is that fear in your body? How is it? Like give it a name. Give it something. Like try to objectify that fear in some sense. Once you notice the fear, close your eyes and feel that emotion. A lot of guys, especially the masculine guys, are don't like the idea of feelings, right? Like they are trying to run away from feelings. And as somebody who was toxically masculine myself earlier, like when I was kickboxing and bodybuilding, I know what it means to be toxically masculine in a way, and to reject emotions. But like as I've grown, emotions became my top priority when it comes to handling myself and my relationships. So yeah, the second step would be to embrace that fear, feel the fear, embrace it, and just sit with it. Like if I'm experiencing anxiety, I'd close my eyes and be like, all right, this feeling is uncomfortable. It wants me to do something. It wants me to jump, to scream, to like do something. But I want, let's just sit with that emotion, whatever it is, and be there with it and accept it. And as I'm feeling the emotion and not doing anything, not reacting as I used to, the emotion starts to lose power, and that power starts to become my power, so to say, to act in a different way. So yeah, step number 1, when you feel any negative emotion that's making you do something you don't want to, stop, notice it, feel it, so to say, embrace it, and then ask yourself, all right, now that I've embraced this emotion, what can I do, or what do I want to do? And it's powerful, especially when it comes to procrastination. A lot of people procrastinate because they're afraid of failing, of being judged, of like being hurt in some sense, and their story about the activity that they're avoiding is hurting them. And until they let go of that story and the emotion that's connected with that story, they'll keep procrastinating. So procrastination, there isn't like a tip that can solve procrastination. It's an emotional regulation issue. And until you learn how to regulate your emotions in that moment, you'll keep procrastinating. And that's why so many people keep procrastinating for their whole lives, because they never learn to handle the emotion that's pushing them from the activity that they should do, that they want to do, right? So yeah, man.
I want to read the tweet that I have here, like one of your tweets about like this last point, and then like unpack some of the things that you just shared. Like yeah, you wrote procrastination is simple. Your mind and body flood with heavy emotions. Why? Because of the meaning you've attached to the activity you're doing. Activity, sales. So that's the example you're giving. Meaning, hard, scary, or overwhelming. Behavior, avoidance.
Yep.
Change the meaning, change the behavior. The biggest thing here I would say is like this part of like the meaning that you give to things. And like I think one of the most valuable things that you just shared is like how really just giving attention to the feeling, like not avoiding it, like really just sitting and like letting it, like embracing it,
Yeah.
allows you to be like in this more calmed uh state and place where you can like shift the meaning that you're giving to things. Let's say that you are like, again, avoidant of like some activity of like running, for example, and you're like, well, yeah, I'm afraid that I will like hurt my ankle or whatever, and like you really just feel the fear of that, and like maybe the fear that you have is what it would mean for you and for your life if you actually broke your ankle, because well, I broke or got hurt or an injury in your ankle, because it would be like, oh yeah, I won't be able like to walk for 2 months properly, and so I won't be able to like go to plans with friends, and they will be like, oh yeah, he doesn't even know how to run, and that's why he couldn't that's why he couldn't come to the plans or whatever. But like the point with that is that the meaning that you've attached to the scenario where your fear turns into reality is what like gives the fear even more power, because like the fear is trying to stop you from going down a path that ends up like taking you to a situation where you're like experiencing something that doesn't mean something good for you. And that works like in that stupid scenario that I just came up with, so like with the ankle, or with more like relevant things, so like relationships, and like maybe fear of falling in love with someone, because if you fall in love and then you break up, like obviously that will probably not mean something good for you, because you'll be feeling very like sad or nostalgic or whatever, and so you say like, oh, what that means for me if I experience that is that I am not maybe good enough for X, Y, and Z or whatever. Or like avoidance of like learning a new skill that will get you like a specific job or a specific business or whatever, because if you fail at that, or if your fear happens, then what the scenario that comes next, what that means for you, is not something good. And like what I mean with all of this is that I think that's something very relevant that you just said, that is like really sitting with the emotion and giving space to that allows you to like be more relaxed and accepting, and from that place change the meaning, because otherwise you're just like in this more alert and like stressed state where you're not even in a position to change the meaning that a given situation would mean for you, because you're just like, again, afraid, stressed, anxious, sad, whatever, and you're just like, no, I'm feeling this, like I cannot change the meaning, because like the meaning is coming from this very intense feeling. One of the best analogies I have heard for like how to handle this is like from a book called Black Sheep. The author is Brant Manswar, and he says like, you can think of your feelings as like passengers of a bus. So you're the driver of the bus, and like you're driving like little kids. Let's say it's a school bus, and like you have different kids that you are like driving in the bus. Some are like very quiet, some are like very loud, whatever, and some kid might come to you and like tell you something like, oh, I think there's like this thing down the road, so you should probably take like this other path. And like that kid might be doing that because he was like afraid of like the bus like crashing or whatever. Or then there might be this other kid that comes to you and says like, oh, I'm very excited to go down this other path because I know that there's like an ice cream shop or whatever. And like an effective bus driver of like a school bus would not necessarily listen to every single thing that the kids say, because I mean they are kids and you are the driver, so you have more power and like responsibility than they do. And like that's a good way of thinking of that, because maybe the kid that came afraid of like crashing is right. Maybe there could be a thing down there, and you as the bus driver should consider maybe not changing the path, but like slowing down so that you do not crash, or like researching some alternative like paths that you could take. But like again, the point here is like you are not gonna just like listen to what they are telling you. So like what these emotions are telling you, and also like you shouldn't like just ignore them, because maybe one of these kids is really afraid and will just start like shouting and making the boss be like a very stressful place and like make everyone feel like uncomfortable and like this be in this like very stressed state. And it's like you cannot be the bus driver that just listens to every single kid and like does what they want you to do, and you cannot just like suppress every kid. You gotta listen to them and like as the bus driver like consider what you're gonna do, what that emotion is telling you to do, and if it even makes sense. If maybe you should just listen to them so that they like calm down and go back to their seats, or if you do that and then also change what you're gonna do. But again, that's like one of the best ways of thinking about
It's
this
a
that I have.
fantastic
Like,
analogy, and it describes this perfectly, you know. And without listening to those kids, something bad would happen. Like, you know, you'd end up like they'd affect you in some sense. So giving yourself space to hear them, but make choice on your own, decide what's the best for them and for yourself, for the whole bus, is that sweet spot we're looking for. Like, be aware of them, allow them in, hear them out, but don't follow through on each of them. Follow through only on those which are good for what you want.
mm-hmm. No, like again, using that analogy is like, okay, you are the bus driver. What life do you want to live as a bus driver? Like, oh yeah, I always just did what the chaotic kids told me to do,
Yeah.
or oh yeah, I listened, or I was like a very effective driver. I listened to some of them when I had to, and then I also managed those kids so that they would not cause a very chaotic situation inside the bus. It's like, oh yeah, I was an effective driver. And like in this analogy, it would be like, what type of bus driver do you want to be? And like in life, of course, it would be like, what type of life do you want to live? Because in the moment, it might be easier to just like give in to emotions, but like that way of doing things adds up, and like later on, like 2-3 years from now, you'd be like, oh, I shouldn't have lived life this way, like always listening to these fears and like being in a very stressed state because of that. And
See,
again,
the
like,
issue there is that people don't even recognize their emotions. Like, they are being controlled by them, by the kids, you know, shouting from the back, and they don't even hear them. Like, they're just those emotions are affecting people, affecting them, you know, think and act in a certain way, but they never hear them, because that's what happens when you don't develop your emotional intelligence enough. Like, emotions are running your life, but you don't even know that. Like, you try to rationalize it, and you explain it to a certain point, you put it into belief, into a frame of belief, and you're like, you know, that's like that, you know, and that's it. And if somebody asks you why, you wouldn't know how to explain it. You wouldn't have any backup. Like, you just, you know, follow that rule. And that's why living consciously and being aware of what's happening within is so important, because you can't have self-control and create a life you want unless you know what's happening within and what is the life that you want. A lot of people spend time, you know, thinking about a life they don't want more than the life they want. And a lot of successful entrepreneurs, you know, I work with many people who have a ton of money. Like, you'd think they're successful, they are, you know, they are happy, fulfilled, they're contributing to people, but many of them ended up there through hustle, through grind, not wanting what they've built. And then when I ask them, you know, like, why are you here? Like, what's the point of all this? They're like, I don't know, man. I just wanted Lamborghini. I just wanted money. I just wanted the mansions. I just wanted the Rolexes, you know. And I was like, all right, now put that all inside. And what do you actually want? Like, what's the life that you want to live on a daily basis in the long run? Forget the money. Forget the status. Like, what is it you actually want? And it's funny that they've never thought about it. They were always driven by this factor of becoming something in somebody's people's eyes, and they never ask themselves, all right, is this what I want? Or, why am I doing this? See, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays spend a lot of time building businesses that they don't like, and then they end up stressed out and miserable. And, that's why the most important question you got to ask yourself first is, what is the life that I want to live on a daily basis? And is this business that I'm building fitting into that narrative? Because if it isn't, then you got to change, the direction, the business.
You just said the word narrative as well. That I think that's something, again, very related to like how you manage your fears, because well, yeah, meaning is part of like the narrative of your life, and like if you do not see it with your emotions and like give them the space they are asking of you, you're not in a place where you have managed those emotions to decide like, okay, what narrative am I giving to my life? And like that added up over time ends up like leading to situations that you are like, why the fuck am I even like living this way? Like, why did I end up like being like this even as a person? And I think that's one of the worst things that could happen, because maybe if you end up living like unfulfilled with your business because you were chasing only like profit instead of like value added to people of like, oh yeah, I love music, so I want to teach people music, and I am also making a lot of money with this, but like that combination, like I think that's like a better scenario to be in, like not being fulfilled with those things than not being fulfilled with who you are. Because like in that place, it's one of the, I would consider that as an actual failure of your previous approach. And like the good thing is that you can actually change that again. You can be like, okay, I'm changing who I am again, and you start to change that through giving attention to your emotions and your fears, which is I think something really valuable out of what we have been discussing.
It's crucial, man. It's crucial. Like our minds operate in symbols and stories, and you can't go beyond it. Like your mind can't comprehend anything that's beyond a symbol or a story. And if you are telling yourself certain stories about who you are and what you can do repeatedly, your mind starts believing that. Your mind can't see the difference between what's real and what's not. It just absorbs what you feed it. Whatever you feed your mind takes it in and then follows. Like you're conditioning your mind on a daily basis with your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And that's very important to understand. Like your mind isn't there to support you, to help you achieve your goals. It's there to act in a way in which you feed it. Like whatever you put in, it puts out, it gives you back. And that's why figuring out, the story that's unfolding in your mind repeatedly is extremely important, because it's conditioning your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And until that's changed, you'll keep repeating the same old patterns, again and again.
One last question about all of this before starting to ask some of the last questions that I always ask in this conversation. So like, what do you think? So again, like the last question, like related to all of this, what do you think is the like? I guess there's no like best way, but like your way, given your experience, to like recondition your mind, not to keep falling into these patterns and beliefs that are limiting, not necessarily like limiting in the way that you think about like your greatest potential or whatever. It's just like limiting yourself to live a life that you're actually fulfilled with. Like, how do you change that narrative and mental conditioning?
What I see in a lot of people is that they are stuck in the same habits and in the same environment. We can start with that. I want to call it, the more shallow layer, which is your habits and your environment. Like I'd start there. I'd change that first. If you're constantly with people who are dragging you down, if you're consuming information on YouTube or like our social media that's making you worse and not better, you gotta stop with those things. Like those things are the primary suspects, and you got to cut them out. You got to cut the people and information that are dragging you down and slowing you down from getting your goals. And it's subjective. Like, everybody has to do this on their own. Everybody knows what these are. It's very obvious when you look at your life and you ask yourself, all right, what am I absorbing daily that's slowing me down? Which information, what people around me that are slowing me down? Like, you have an answer, and you just gotta decide that those things are not what you want anymore because they're slowing you down. Then, once the environmental factor is changed, it'll be much easier to make a change, because like your mind won't be fed the same information, the same thoughts and feelings anymore, and you'll be more in control to make it a better decision. So when it comes to changing the narrative, I would say start with first of all asking yourself, what is it that you want out of a given situation. Obviously, you can ask yourself, what I want out of life or like out of business. But if you want to be specific, you want to take any situation that's happening in your life that you don't like now and ask yourself, all right, what don't I like here and what do I want? Once you have the North Star, once you know what you want, you can start removing what's stopping you from getting there. But like the first question is what I want. The second question would be what's stopping you from getting there. Because a lot of people have those unconscious patterns getting in their way and stopping them all the time, not knowing what they are, but they keep happening. And asking the question, what's stopping me, brings those to the surface, brings those up from unconscious mind and behavior to the surface, and then you can tackle them, you can handle them, like you can do something about them. I wanna build a business. All right, what's stopping me? Well, what's stopping me is the fear that somebody will judge me. All right, what can I do now? Well, I can accept that fear. I can embrace the emotion, change the narrative, and then start acting in small steps. Like, that would be a solution for that situation, for example. But yeah, the first step is defining your North Star. The second step would be figuring out what's stopping you from getting there. The third step would be removing what's stopping you from getting there. We can get in this obviously in more detail, but I'm not sure how much time we have.
No, it's okay. You can get in as much detail as you want.
Yeah. The first step is defining North Star. The second step is figuring out what's stopping you. The third step is removing that. And then the fourth step would be defining the small action step that you can take today to push yourself in that direction. And that small step should be something that's on the edge of comfortable and uncomfortable. Because a lot of people, for example, I have a goal to, let's just give a typical example for an online entrepreneur. I have a goal to sell my program 10 times, in the next 3 months, for example. You define the action steps, and if the action steps are too challenging, you'd feel anxious and you'd avoid those tasks because they're too challenging. While if you make them too comfortable, you wouldn't feel the drive, you would be motivated to take action because they're too comfortable. You know that you can do them. So you gotta find a sweet spot, What's that amount of action that you wanna take that's just challenging enough, but not too much, to spark the drive and keep you going. And it's again subjective, right? Like everybody has to ask and reply to that question their own. What is the sweet spot that's keeping the drive alive, keeping the fire burning, but not burning too much so that it burns me out, right? So yeah, when it comes to changing the narrative, it's about understanding what the narrative is, becoming aware of the narrative, then embracing the idea that is your narrative now, and then asking yourself, all right, what would be a better narrative or a story that would serve me better going forward toward my goal? If your current narrative when it comes to, for example, sales or procrastination is, if I go out and sell to people, I'll get rejected. I can't do this, I'm bad. Once you become conscious of it, once you become aware of that narrative, you can decide to change it. All right. Instead of seeing that as the outcome, having that story unfold in my mind, what would happen if I told myself that I'm just here to learn and go and grow one step at a time, and that it's fine to get rejected. Like there's not anything wrong with it getting rejected, right? And changing the narrative changes how you perceive the situation, the outcome, therefore what you do, because what your mind sees, when your mind sees it, it gives you a certain emotion and a certain idea of what you should do. And if the narrative is different, it will give you a different emotion and a different idea what you should do. So instead of limiting yourself with why you can't, open up your mind and define why and how you can. And that's crucial. But obviously, the first step is becoming aware of what the limiting belief is. Like you can't change anything you don't see. Once you're aware of it, you have the power to change.
And I was thinking like changing their narrative through actions, like as you were saying, like through a combination of comfortable actions that are comfortable enough and uncomfortable enough, like this sweet spot is a good way to actually to follow up with that new narrative. But I was thinking like still, if you don't see yourself as a person who takes those actions and who becomes the result of that process, like you won't even have like even if the actions are like at the sweetest spot, which I mean it's not the sweetest spot, like but at like the best sweet spot, you will be like you will still have some avoidance and resistance because you do not see yourself as a person who takes those actions or who becomes the result of those. And I guess that like you can still apply the same principles, but like for the narrative, not of the situation, but the narrative about who you are in that situation. And like in that way, maybe if you are right now like a person who is complaining a lot about a specific thing in your business, like if you identify yourself as like that person and you are not willing to change the narrative about who you are, even if you change the narrative of what the problem you're facing means for you and like what the actions mean and everything, like without changing like who you think you are, like your self-perception, everything else won't necessarily change. But I guess like
for sure
the same principles that you just talked about apply for like changing the narrative about yourself, to see like to think like, okay, maybe right now it will be somewhat uncomfortable for me to like change who I am or who I think I am, but like if I focus on the long term or on the midterm or on like who I will become after the process, I will be someone who will look back and thank my current self because I was responsible enough to make that identity change that led to the behavior change.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like you will always go back to there's three parts when it comes to changing your anything. The first part is cognitive, the second part is emotional, and the third part is behavioral. And your identity is all three of those combined. And you got to figure out which part is stopping you. Like do you have a limiting belief? Do you have a fear, for example, or is there literally a behavioral problem that you're facing that you have to approach differently? It's usually a combination of all three in some sense, but you got to figure out what's the biggest one, what's the root of all, so that you can fix that and work on it. Because a lot of people try to fix emotional problems by changing the narrative, which doesn't work, or mental sort of say cognitive problems by changing the behavior, which doesn't work either. Like you got to figure out what is it that's stopping you right now from getting what you want. And what you said is very important. Like who you are is resulting in everything you have. Like everything you have around you is just a mirror of who you are, of your identity, of your beliefs, values, and habits. And until that's changed, obviously, like you'll keep repeating the same old behaviors. But when it comes to changing who you are, the most important part there would be figuring out who you actually want to become. Because a lot of people force themselves to be somebody they're not, just for the sake of, like I want to be Andrew Tate, Dude, screw Andrew Tate, like, who cares about Andrew Tate? Like, like forget the guy. Like, he's popular, he's strong, famous, whatever. I want to be like him. No. You want to figure out who you want to be for the sake of yourself, not for the sake of somebody else. And that's probably the North Star when it comes to defining who you want to become, is asking yourself the question, all right, who do I want to become? Not for somebody else, but for myself. And that's what everybody is missing, because everybody asks themselves, all right, who do I want to become so that I can reach the goal? Who do I want to become so that I can X, like something, right? Then ask yourself, who do I want to become so that I can live with myself whole life, right?
Which is part of having fun through the process, because all of this comes down to like, okay, what is stopping you from living this way or that way or doing this or that? And all of that is related to, okay, if I do that, I will probably, one, like not feel bad and not be fearful. So like Tony Robbins talks about this, and I know that you like him. So like you will escape pain and you will like get closer to like pleasure, which is like the way he puts it. Like, oh yeah, I will be happy with myself. I will be happy with the way that I live life. But yeah, like that makes sense, and I appreciate these things that you have been sharing about this. Is there any other topic you would like to discuss regarding these things before I start like asking the last questions that I usually ask?
I think we've covered a lot, and I think the audience will have a lot of ideas to think on. So if you want to ask something specific, go on. But as for me, I think we've shared enough. But obviously, if you think you want to share more, we can share. We can be sharing for hours, man. If you want,
Yeah, I know.
So fine.
Look, I'll do it this way. So like, I usually ask 3 like standard questions to all of my guests, but for you, I have one extra one, which is like related to, I think, your path, but something that you shared when we first talked. But I want you to like dive into that through the lens of what we have been saying. So like reframing fears, reframing who you are, doing the things that lead you to actually achieve your goal through removing like those fears and those scenarios that make you be afraid. But like, I think that you shared that you spent, or that you used to spend your time between like Belgrade in Serbia and I think it was Dubai in the UAE. So like Dubai. How you have?
Yeah, Dubai is wild, man. I'm between the two now, but I've met my fiance last year here, so I spend more time here than there, these days. But the first time, I went to Dubai for the first time, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and it was me and my brother. We went there for 10 days just to see Dubai, just to get a feel for what that city is, because everybody's talking about Dubai. So we went, and in those first 10 days, what we've experienced in those 10 days was so wild and so moving that we decided to stay for the next, who knows how long, So we stayed for the next 6 months straight. The thing with Dubai is that people are moving fast, and Dubai was built in 30 years, and there's a saying that everything happens 5 times faster in Dubai, and that's 100% true. Like, everything happened 5 times faster for me and my brother when we were there. Like, people are decision makers, and they adapt fast, they move fast, they think fast, and that's what's beautiful about Dubai. You go there, and it challenges you. Like, it humbles you and it challenges you. You start thinking about the things you wouldn't think otherwise. Like, a lot of new possibilities open, and you are starting to contemplate new ideas because you see people doing things. Like, you don't see scarcity, you don't see fear, you don't see you don't see many negative emotions, and because of the environment, you're more open to exploring something you otherwise wouldn't. And like, we were in Dubai for 6 months straight, and then in and out after that. And I like to spend like 4 months per year there, like from let's say November until February, because it gets way too hot, like from March till September, October. And for any young entrepreneur who wants to build something, I definitely suggest Dubai as a place to go and explore their capacity, network, meet people, build, just get moving.
Over the travel that I have done, like over the last months and years, I've been to different places that like inspire in this way, that they get you inspired in this way, as you were saying. Like, for me, I guess like the one that was like that the most was New York. But I was also the things that I was in Dubai last year, and I think I did share this with you, but it was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for a quick layover,
yeah.
and so it was like at 2 a.m. and I just had like a big coffee to like go to the city and like just walk around, and I was there
Hmm.
for like some hours and then got back to the airport. Um, but like I understand what you're saying of like even with that short experience, I had the chance of like getting inspired by like this hugeness of what people are doing there. So like you have like this very huge buildings, this very huge parks, this very huge roads. Because like I was used to walking because I walked a lot when I was in Europe. Because like in Europe you can actually walk, but like
Yeah.
in the way you cannot walk.
There's no
It's
walking
really
away
just
at all, man.
yeah, no. That's what I noticed when I was there. But yeah, I understand that it's like one of these cities that, of course, like it depends on who you are as a person. Like some big mountain also might get you very inspired. Like
Sure,
that happened to me
sure.
as well when I was in Bali, for example.
Hmm.
I was like hiking this mountain called Mount Batur, and then you have like the other one which is Agung, I think. And so like we went there for like sunrise, and so we were hiking, and like once the sun came out, like you could just see like the sun over there, and then like the other mountain here in front of you, and like almost like a sea full of clouds, which I mean it was like a it was fog. It was not actually like clouds, but it was like fog in the valley below
Powerful.
the yeah below the mountains, and it's like places like that get you inspired to like see different things, see like this very majestic things, like get you out of this
Hmm.
patterns and states that you might be like living in another environment, and it's like a good shift to experience, even if it's
It
just
is.
not like outside of the country and it's like in your town city. There are a lot of like things that can get you inspired in that way, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Too many people try to change and to like grow without exposing themselves to growth and to challenges. Like you gotta expose yourself to different challenges and different things if you wanna grow. And I'm sure I've traveled a lot as well. And every time I've traveled to a different country and stayed there for a while, I grew in some sense. Like those were the periods when I grew the most because a lot of things challenged me. From the emotional point of view, from the financial point of view, from the social point of view. Like there's always something new and different and difficult that you gotta figure out, and by like through the process of figuring that out, you grow, you expand your beliefs and ideas about what's possible and about who you are. So everybody who wants to grow should be traveling for sure, or at least exposing themselves to new situations and challenging situations as much as possible.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, thanks for sharing your about your experience in Dubai and in this type of places. Now I want to get into like this like last three questions that I usually ask to guests, and if you want to relate any of them to like the things we discussed before, or to this last part of like your experience traveling and in Dubai and in Serbia, you can do.
Sure.
So yeah, the first one is like, what is a movie, book, music album, blog, whatever that you have recently watched or consumed that you think is like valuable, good, fun that you want to share?
As for books, I can, it's easy. But as for movies or like, songs or something, not sure, not sure, not sure. Uh, I've been very specific with my consumption lately. Um, Although my girlfriend got me into watching, series with her, TV shows with her, I haven't been watching the shows before. Um, we watched a show. We finished watching a show recently, which was called Jupiter's Legacy, and it's about some superheroes, and something like that. And I'm thinking about how that could be valuable to somebody.
No, I mean if it was just entertaining or fun, it's valuable as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was very interesting. It was very funny though. In series, you have this like six. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. There's definitely a big lesson there. So six people who didn't like each other had to travel together, and during that travel, they had to become friends and learn to trust each other, not to get killed, not to die. And once they let go of their problems towards each other and learn to trust each other, they got those superpowers, like from Jupiter, and became literally superheroes, who can fly, who can shoot lasers from their eyes, and great minds, and so on and so forth. And as they were passing, like walking that path and learning how to tolerate each other and how to be friends, they were seeing a lot of dead bodies around them. Like a lot of people tried to walk that path before, and because they were not able to accept each other's differences, something killed them. And those six in the series made it because they became able to accept each other's differences. So I think that series also goes back to what we talked at the beginning of this podcast, and it's acceptance, like accepting the differences, other people's differences, and being okay with them not being like you is extremely powerful, and that's what builds trust. So yeah, that's the movie. Oh, the series, sorry.
Is it on Netflix, Amazon Prime Video?
Yeah.
Oh,
Netflix. It's called Jupiter's Legacy.
cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. Sounds good. I mean, I'm more. I usually joke about this, but like I'm a person who likes to watch movies and series that I've previously watched. So like I very rarely like watch new movies. I tend to like watch a movie 10 times, and then maybe I watch a new one, and then like I watch another one that I
10
already.
times. Come on, man.
No, I mean not 10 times, but like no, but I'm like okay, maybe I watch like one that I watched like 3 months ago. I do again like this week, and then like one that I watched a year ago, I do again like next week or things like that. But I mean, I like the movies that I already like. I enjoy watching them again and again. I mean, of course, not 10 times, but like I enjoy them.
That's good.
But yeah. Then like the next thing, what is it can be again related to anything that we talked about or to any topic, but like what's something that you have learned or discovered recently that is either valuable or interesting to share?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I've been discovering a lot of things. I started working with a different mentor last May, and I learned quite a few things with her. One thing that stands out would definitely be, well, she reminded me, when it comes to like to the whole story about having fun and being playful. That's who I was my whole life. Like I've always been that guy who didn't think much about the consequences and just thought about what can I do now, and I was fast and I was acting fast my whole life. But then that mindset, that experimental mindset slipped at some point, and I forgot how to play, how to have fun. And last March, I would say, May, she noticed that, and she reminded me of the importance of it, right? Like she was like, you are being too rigid and too strict, and things aren't going your way because you're setting strict boundaries about how things should be. You're thinking in terms of strategies and systems and rules, and not in terms of what you actually want. And figuring that out with her, learning how to let go of the need to control. I would say that's it. Like I was afraid of losing control, and learning how to let go of the need to control the things I cannot control was the biggest lesson for me. Over the past 12 months, because we all try to. All fears, or like most fears, stem from the need to control either what's happening within or the perception of you. And letting go of the need to control things gives you such a like it gives you freedom, clarity, and confidence to just be who you are and act as you want. So yeah, that's it, man. Like letting go of the need to control was the big thing I've learned over the past 12 months.
Did you ever experience the fear like through this experience of 12 months? Like, did you ever experience the fear of letting go and having let go end up in like affecting or giving consequences to like not becoming someone who you wanted to become, or not like achieving things you wanted to do? Like, did that fear of, oh, if I let go of control, I might not accomplish this or that, did that ever happen to you, or did you experience that?
Well, it was the fear, right? If I let go of control, I won't be able to control it. Therefore, I won't be able to get what I want. Well, like that was the fear that I had to let go. It was it was related to like my like it permeated all areas of my life. My relationship, my business, my friends, family. The need to control outcomes, like although I'm perfectly conscious of how impossible that is, I somehow slipped into that pattern of thought. And yeah, you asked, what did you ask, man? You asked if that
Yeah,
fear.
like if that fear was an obstacle in any way, like, hey, if that had
Well,
been
yeah,
like
big
a
time.
usual experience.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, the fear of like trying to control everything was definitely an obstacle, because then if things wouldn't go my way, I'd get too stressed out, too anxious. I'd blame, like myself for something that's not on me. Like you can't control external factors, and you can't even control what's happening within you. You can only observe and accept what's happening within you. And I became too rigid and um, too rigid with myself and with others. I tried to
Mm.
control every outcome in my life, and that's impossible. And that just started causing anxiety mostly.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta like learn to change that approach, right? Like, not be so extreme about like wanting or needing to control everything, because like you cannot even like control every outcome. Like, I was
Definitely.
recording a podcast recently again, like my guest was sharing like, yeah, the only things we control are like our, it was like five things. I don't really remember like the five specific things, but I think it was like, yeah, our thoughts, perceptions, feelings, actions, and mm, well, behavior, I think, but like behavior is related to like your actions. But yeah, like it's like wrapping up the things that we talked about before. If like being too rigid to control the outcomes ends up leading you to like not enjoy the process that you are supposed to be enjoying, because it's like the process of getting to where you want to go is like, I mean, that's not effective. That doesn't really even make sense. It's like, do you want to get something or enjoy getting that and get that? Like, that's where you need to come to terms with yourself.
100%, definitely, yeah. When it comes to what we can control, I'd say we can't control our thoughts, we can't control our feelings, we can't control the external like stimuli and what's happening to us. Like the only thing we control is how we respond to all of those. We have
Mm-hmm.
like your thoughts are a product of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind, learned how to think certain thoughts, and it associates a certain thought with a certain external stimuli, and you can't help yourself. Like your subconscious mind will just give you the thoughts, but what you do with them is up to you. Like that's what you can choose and what you can control. The same goes for feelings. The same goes for what you do. Like most of what you do is unconscious, believe it or not. Like 95 or 99% of what you do is unconscious. It's crazy, but it's true. Like the way I'm moving my body now, my accent, my tone, my like my everything that I'm doing right now with my body that you're seeing is unconscious. Like I'm not consciously doing this. My body is taught to do this, and so yeah, you control very little, when you think about it, but you control enough to direct yourself toward a better goal and better life. Let's put it that way.
You control very little, but you control enough. Like, I
Exactly.
like to put it that way.
Yeah.
That one was good.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is, I told you that my podcast is called Coffee Lounge, and so my last question is like, what is your favorite type of coffee? That can be a specific type of coffee bean, like from a specific country, or a specific way of drinking coffee, like Americano, flat white, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and what is like the situation or place in which you like to, in which you love to drink coffee?
Dude, I drink coffee all day, man. I drink like I don't know. I wrote about on X a couple of times about this. Like I gotta slow down with coffee, But fortunately, they're making decaf. Like decaf exists, With decaf, it became much easier. But I drink like I don't know. I'd say 5 coffees per day, and I try to drink out of those 5. I try to make 2 or 3 of them decafs, which is good. Like it's 2 actual coffees per day or 3, and 2 3 decafs. As for the type, it's definitely cappuccino. As for the bean, I don't know. I like strong coffee. I like strong aftertaste. So some I like some Cuba, or there's Nicaragua is good as well. I like Cuba and Nicaragua beans. But yeah, definitely cappuccino, man. I tried Americano for some time, but it's too. I don't know. It wasn't, like we didn't click. So I'm sticking to cappuccino, man.
Ah, that's good. Yeah. I like a lot of flat whites. Not necessarily the thing. My thing with cappuccino is that I am not a huge fan of milk, and so like I prefer for coffee drinks that have milk to have like more coffee than milk. And like for me, most times cappuccino always tastes more like milk than coffee.
I know what you mean. Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
But like, of course, for example, if I want to have something for dinner and then like they have a cappuccino and like some cake for dessert, I would of course take it. But yeah, like thanks for sharing that. And is there anything else you want to add, discuss, any comment, anything?
Nothing, man. I'm happy that we've had this chat. I hope this will add value to a lot of people, and I enjoy talking to you and sharing all the experiences and all the information. And what you're doing here is extremely good because you are chill, young, smart, and expressing like getting value in this frame, in this position, in which you're just like having a coffee and having a chat, is fantastic. Like that's not too strict, not too rigid. A lot of young people like this chill vibe, and I think this can be great.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for everything that you have shared. I think it's like really one of the most valuable things to talk about when it comes to like even mental health stuff, like addressing fears and like how to manage them effectively, assertively, and like in a way where you can keep moving forward even with those. So thanks for sharing all of that. Yeah, I appreciate your time.
For sure, my friend. Thank you very much as well.